So the practice that I wanted to share relates directly to being able to engage the astral, but through the dream body, through the dream self. And this is actually it's a Tibetan yogic practice of dream yoga that involves visualization and hearing a tone in your heart when you go to sleep. And what you're supposed to do is, when you're going to sleep at night, if you normally lie on your back, you want to lie on your side, or if you're a side sleeper, you want to lie on your back. You still want to be able to relax your body, but be in a position you're not normally in, so that your physical body and your mental consciousness notes that something's a little different.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Blue Hour podcast, where we explore the minds and the worlds of visionary artists and creators. This week I welcome back William, who is a teacher and also a publisher, and he teaches at the 22 Teaching Hermetic School with Naha. So this is the last segment of these 3 parts, and I really like this episode because I always ask the 3 same questions at the beginning, and his answer is really surprising me in its depth and complexity, but also understanding. And later in the episode, he shares a dream yoga technique that is fascinating, that I have myself delved into years ago, and I think it's just a good reminder of the power of the mind and how dreams can be a powerful tool for spiritual growth. You won't want to miss this part out for sure. And if you guys want to support the channel and everything we do with the grant and the different artists, shop our merch. I'm wearing it right now. It's the perfect sweater for this type of weather. It's nice, cozy amp for the studio when the days are getting cooler. So go check our website. I'll put the link below. And let's jump right in. So part 2 with William. So let's start with the soul journey questions. So the same question. So what is it that gives you the most joy ever since you're born, that is kind of a conductor line throughout your life?
I think there's moments that come up where I'm sharing time either in nature or with other individuals where I'm really feeling the life force emanating in a way that feels all-encompassing. And I was thinking about this the other day because on April 1st we have a holiday at the school, Fool's Day, and a lot of our instructors come together and offer these free teachings to the community. But just sitting in the room, sitting in the school and seeing the students and seeing the community come together made me feel very joyful, but also it keyed me into some memories of joy that I had in my past. And they're just fleeting moments of joy, these very effusive moments when you focus in like that. I think if I were to talk about a sustaining joy that I carry through my reality, it's the joy of creativity. It's the joy of embodying creativity, because I'm somebody that's filled with a lot of creative impulses, and I like to manifest these different impulses. I have so many ideas, creative ideas, that I'm not able to actually manifest them all. So when I'm able to move in those ways where I can see the creativity happening, that really does bring me joy. So I think it is the creative act is what's happening. And when I can share those moments with other people, it's even more fulfilling. I feel.
Okay. And what in your past, the second question is the descent. So throughout your lifetime, which obstacles have come to hinder this? How have you been tempted, or like something that comes block that creative?
I think feeling like I'm limited on time. I think it's my projection of wanting to accomplish more than the limitations of time offer me, and maybe falling prey to those perceptions of how time works, and feeling like there's definitely an outline to the linearity of time and the structure of time. But for me, I think the downfall is really falling prey to that, falling prey to seeing the structure of time as a limitation rather than seeing it as a step, seeing it as a side to a cycle, and that recognizing that the limitation of that time is really a rhythm, and that there's a motion there, and seeing that as a pulse, missing that pulse that the structure of time represents. And so I think my downfall is really feeling the stress of the physicality of time, and allowing it to be a limitation rather than recognizing it as the structure of a cycle.
Right. And also it reflects in me the fact that when you also shift your perspective from like the solar perspective, that this soul is timeless, that whatever work you're gonna have done in this world will be, pursued in the next lifetime and the next. So in this way, the idea that we have limited time, yes, for this body avatar, but the work you're on the process of completing will pursue if you don't finish it in this lifetime. So in this sense, like, it gives a sense of urgency because of the ego that doesn't want to die.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel that it's falling prey to that idea that it's a limitation, when really what I'm probably experiencing is just the work.
But it's interesting also how I mentioned the key and the Saturnian aspect. It seems like it's a important part in your mythology, the Saturnian time and the heaviness of karmic responsibilities and doing the work and feeling constricted by time. It seems like it's a big thing.
Absolutely, and that's reflected in my chart as well, because I have Saturn and Sun and Mercury conjunct. So those three come into play for me quite frequently.
It's interesting with the press, the Ouroboros press as well comes into the equation with all the publishing and feeling constricted. It's like a very big triangle of your life.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to look at your chart also if you want after. So the third, in this case, how in your life have you alchemized this in some moments, like having found a solution to bypass this sense of time, basically, of yourself dying and you won't be there to finish what you've come to do?
Yeah, I think that when you talk about it in terms of like the limitation of life and this idea of death, I'm really not so afraid of death, because I've had near-death experiences, either through adventures that I was on, but also occasions where I thought I had poisoned myself and was slipping into what I believed to be the end of my life. And it was interesting to confront that moment and to realize that really I I wasn't so afraid of the idea of the death at all. I was more curious about what the next phase was going to be for my consciousness, because my consciousness was observing the fleetingness of life. But despite the fact that the life force of my physicality seemed to be waning in the moment, the consciousness was still quite awake and quite vital in that sense. And so that curiosity really kind of brought me through that moment. And so I think that really just recognizing the engagement that I have with the time that I am living and breathing and moving in manifestation, and trying to perceive what it is that nature is conveying to me. Because there's a process of integration that I engage in with my work, where I'm trying to understand myself. I'm trying to follow that dictum of know thyself. But I feel that in order for that to happen, I have to recognize myself, but recognize myself in how I fit into nature, how I engage with nature, and what my movement is an echo of. Because the movement that I keep coming back to, this idea of movement, this idea of vibration, or the rhythms of time, or the cycles, right? These pulses, these vibrations. That's the thing that I key into, is the movement. And what I think is interesting about movement and vibration is its relationship with sound, and how sound is symbolic of spirit, and that the vibrations, the densities of, or tonalities of vibration, are how the different ways the forms come into being in manifestation. And as something that I like to say when I'm teaching with the students, is relating to this vibration, is that this motion is creating something out of nothing. Because movement is not a thing. It's not an object, but it creates forms, it creates structure, it creates order. And it allows us to experience manifestation, even though those manifestations really aren't a thing themselves. So keying into that is kind of my process, and sometimes it's a joyful one, sometimes it's a limiting one, sometimes it's a migratory one.
That's so interesting how you describe this, because like that's actually the idea for putting these three questions one after the other, is for the gift you just gave us. It's like, because you've done the work of synthesizing the initiation and the descent into the gift that it has offered you, and you're already teaching it. So in this way, that is kind of your unique gift to the world, is like, it's a very refined gift that is, the way you describe it can be practical, but it's more on a kind of philosophical, intellectual level, to understand the bigger picture of your consciousness. And I think that's a very big gift to give to people.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. That philosophical approach, and maybe this ties into my overall approach and my overall teaching style is since I come from a Hermetic perspective, and in Hermeticism, language and communication is really an important symbolic set of tools that we use, right? This idea of logos, and this idea of the word, and the spirit that the word embodies. And it gets into that force and form relationship that vibration is also related to, right? The tone of my speech and the form that words shape the tones into. And I really engage with that hermetic and that philosophic side in a magical way because of my pursuit of alchemical studies and hermetic studies. Hermes Trismegistus being the patron, right? And Hermes being the god of language, but also the god of magic. And there's that relationship between language and magic in many traditions. It really comes into play in the tradition that we teach. And it's again, it comes back to motion. It comes back to vibration, because the tonality of the voice, which we equate with spirit because of the life breath and the life force, the volition, the vitality, but then the words themselves. As a publisher, as a bookseller, my career really kind of came out of my studies, because I was very fortunate to have an inquiry into the mysteries when I was quite young, and was fortunate enough to have mentors that helped guide me. But in my early search of trying to understand how I fit into the mysteries and how I could approach the mysteries in a practical way, that was when my journey into working with books came into play. And there really was a time where I realized that I could use books as a symbolic structure, as a path of the hero, as Joseph Campbell would say. The archetype of the book could be a symbol that I could engage with, that would be able to not only allow me a unique way to create a career for myself, a life path for myself, but that I could at the same time glean esoteric information from by engaging in that life path. And at first it was really just about, well, what do I want to do? As a young man, and it's like, well, I need to figure out how I'm going to, make a living and these sorts of things. And I really spent a lot of time thinking about that, because I didn't want to do a regular 9-to-5 job. I never really found myself attracted to that kind of a lifestyle. So in that process of deciding how I wanted to face my career, I asked a lot of questions about, well, what do I want to do? Who am I, and what do I want to engage with? And this rolls into that know thyself dictum that we encounter in the mysteries. And, reflecting on Hermes as a patron, the thrice greatest, this idea of the three, is really a cycle that we can utilize in this process, because it's the cycle of manifestation, the three, right? There's even just with mathematics, there's the point of origin, the line of dualism or polarity. And then when we get into the third dimension, where we're starting to see the forms come together, and manifestation, that's where things are birthed and the mother comes into being. Even Saturn is associated with 3 at times. So there's the life and the death, the cycle of life and death. I engage with that threefold process that Hermes communicates through the spirit, through the word, and through the actions, the bringing together of the force and form. But in the alchemical sense that Hermes is the patron of, again, we see that threefold cycle of that can be represented in so many different ways. The drawing from that creative impulse that I have that brings me joy. Alchemy is one of the most creative of the esoteric arts. It's literally called the royal art, right? And I think the reason why it's called an art is because of that commingling that goes on. It's the use of all the different elements of the universe, but understanding how to engage with those elements in cyclical ways, in those threefold ways. We first encounter an operation in alchemy symbolically engaging with the dragon, the black stage of the work, the dark stage of the work, the stage when something is in its primal nature, in its unrefined state. And sometimes that can be a very strong encounter. It can be a very vitriolic, dangerous encounter, a dark, veiled encounter, one of darkness that we can't quite see what it is yet because there's a struggle that's going on. And then we can move into the purificatory state, the washing away of that which is non-essential, and removed the mixed qualities that the dragon represents, the unrefined animalistic side, the more instinctual side, the part of the self that wants to survive, that's afraid because of the darkness. And that purificatory state comes from the reflection. What am I afraid of? What is emerging from this darkness? What is the shape that this primal form has not yet come into being yet? What shape is coming into being? And that's a reflective, more lunar, intuitive process, I think, of purifying the senses, purifying the instinctual, and go, well, my instincts are telling me something, but what are my instincts telling me? They're raising the flags, but I need to see a little more clearly, so I'm going to remove that which is not necessary and try to get into the core of it. And that comes from reflection and maybe cooling down things a little bit with Luna or with the waters.
And just to come back to the question, is this because this is a process that has been very important in your own kind of, in this journey that we started on with the initiation and the descent? Is this like a big theme that you've been put yourself through?
Absolutely. I think that engaging with this it's really been helpful for me, because when we engage in this process, when I've engaged with this process, like for instance, trying to decide that I wanted to become a publisher and that I wanted to engage in books in some way, it really required facing the reality that I could symbolically say is the black dragon. How am I going to exist in this world? There's certain social contracts, there's responsibilities that I have to engage in, and that can be represented by the dragon. But if I want to engage in it in a way that not only just supports me in the material world, but can edify me in the esoteric world, it's going to require being able to purify my senses in a way where I can attain both of those things as a bridge. So yeah, it's really a process. For me, it's a process of being able to do what Paracelsus says is read the book of nature, Codex Natura, and be able to see the signs and understand that nature can teach us in lots of different ways. Whether for me it's choosing the path of the book, or for others it might be to be a gardener or to study herbology or whatever, but be able to see how those things can engage on several planes.
And I do feel like with your answer of these three questions, there's a lot of angles someone that's listening could take to extract wisdom that just overlaps on their lives, and kind of do what you did in your own life, is analyze kind of the different moving parts that are often like invisible and unconscious, put them in your awareness and see kind of almost like in an alchemical lab, see the different instruments that are being used, how they work one with each other, to then have a more fulfilling life and seeing the bigger picture of all those moving invisible parts. Mm-hmm. So that's a very valuable answer, so thank you for that. What do you say we go for the thunder questions?
Yeah.
So I think there's a few that I think would be actually bridge well with what you just said. Which part of nature feels the most like a mirror for your soul?
Which part of nature feels most like a mirror for my soul? I feel like I really engage with nature when I'm able to get away from civilization and get into the rawness of nature. And when I say rawness, I'm talking about sort of more of a purity of nature, because even the city can be of nature. I mean, civilization is a product of nature in its own way. But I think it's important for me to be able to get into nature, and like if I'm walking on a beach and there's no obstruction of my vision, I can look out across the sea, and it's like an empty slate. Or I can walk along the shore of the beach and watch the grains of the sand, or watch the accumulation of rocks, and sort of have that clear my consciousness. It's like it erases the board and cleans the slate, and breathe air and hear sounds that cleanse the palette of my perception and get me back to a baseline, get me back to a grounding and a acknowledgement of the unmixed nature of nature herself. So that when I do engage with the city or engage with other aspects of life that maybe we don't think of as nature, I can recognize her in the different aspects of civilization. I think that's so important, because again, I think nature is the best teacher. Mm-hmm. I think she's the best teacher.
Yeah, definitely. Every aspect of God is infused in every part of nature. Even the alchemical process you discussed is found in all microscopic or macroscopic. So, next question. This one I was curious to ask you specifically. Is there a memory that feels like it belongs to another lifetime, or like a time in your life where you saw something and you were connected with another lifetime? And the reason that I'm fascinated with this question for you, again, the key, the symbol of the key, in Vedic astrology is linked with Ketu, and Ketu is all linked to your spiritual lineage and your past lives. So I'm wondering your relationship with that in this question.
My relationship with my past lives, I haven't really engaged a lot with concretized ideas of what my past lives may have been. I've had other readers tell me about my past lives. I've done meditations where I've gone into and seen things that perhaps were past lives. But for me, I really feel like I connect into those concepts in terms of lineage, when you're talking about lineage, or maybe what some people would say an old soul, this idea of the timeless self. And sometimes I experience that when I'm in nature, and sometimes I experience that when I'm in meditation or in ritual, where I'll experience myself literally as a link in a lineage that extends far into the past and far into the future, and I become aware of that. There's this awareness of a continuity of existence that transcends time but embodies infinite moments of time. And that's really the only way I can really connect to a past life in a sense. I mean, I've done meditations where, it's like try to open yourself up to places like that, and I've had visions where I was walking along in an autumn. There was an autumn scene where I remember the smell of the leaves, the crackle of the leaves under my feet. I remember being aware of masts of a ship, and that I was perhaps a sailor on the ship, and the ship was, something from 17th century, maybe 18th century, not so sure. Just glimpses, really. So I don't find for myself, I haven't found a lot of use or a lot of identification with those things. More of a feeling, more of a sense of timelessness that taps into infinite moments. It's a difficult thing
but I think I see it as almost like you connect with the watery aspect of a river rather than like the different parts that the molecule goes through.
Yeah, and in our tradition, there's this idea of the higher self or the holy guardian angel, and I think that connecting in with that aspect of self, the greater self, if you want to use that terminology, that's another way of tapping into that timeless ancestry. It's a future past kind of consciousness.
Makes sense. This one, I'm trying to think because I have so many. What would be the best ones? This one you already answered. You've actually answered a few of them just by because you've been developing on the questions and you've answered a few already. Which archetype do you feel the most visited by lately?
Most visited by? I think the lunar archetypes are really the ones that are coming up for me a lot in recent times. And I think, I really think it's the moon. The moon in its different aspects. It's the agency of magic. It's the agency of the agency of magic. It's the messenger that brings, Mercury's the messenger of the gods, but Luna really does reflect all the other celestial bodies to us. And I feel like the moon is one that comes up for me quite a bit.
It's interesting just to connect Naha's, both of you guys' part, the behind the veil. That dream I spoke to you about is about the Luna, and in that dream, it was a very specific message. But you kind of the energy you impersonated was giving me the clue to look up Aztec blue. And in the vision, the dream, I saw kind of like this blue color, transparent, go over my eyes, and it would give me the vision of the astral in the physical. So seeing the elementals and this kind of vision. And there was a very specific type of download that came, it's symbolic, but I woke up from that dream specifically, almost like my psyche made me wake up so I could remember and note it down. But then I looked up what is Aztec blue, and it's a specific color the Mayans and these cultures used and mixed with clay with another ink pigment that would create, they would use it for ceremony, this specific color, Aztec blue. So it just opened for my own art, like, okay, I need to research this, I need to understand how to make it, how it was used and all these things. And the other part of the message was about the moon. Well, this was also about the moon, just in the way it was given to me. But it was like, I saw this kind of heart shape, and it's like the influence of the moon, the information of the moon entered, how there's two half circles on the top of the heart, the symbol of the heart. It entered one hemispheres of the heart as energy, bounced back, this more sharp angle at the bottom, and was imprinted in the other sphere. And in this way, the specific angle of the communication in the heart with the bouncing back of the information created a sound. And that sound was the message of the heart, of the moon. And I was like, okay, this is fascinating. I could open this vision in many ways and analyze it to understand. But like, it's interesting how the lunar aspects in our lives communicate in different ways than the solar aspects. And this language is a bit unknown to humanity. It's known in our DNA, but to humanity, it's kind of a tradition that has been lost as the kind of lunar rites have been, less used in this solar era we're in. So it's interesting that you're mentioning this, but that this kind of connects in a way.
I think that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. And it actually relates to the practice that I was going to share.
So let's move right in then.
Because you were talking about the dreams and talking about the moon. But what's interesting is that the way you were sharing about the shape of the symbol of the heart and it being a resonant chamber, but also the heart is also a symbol of the sun. The sun is often in the heart, and so this idea of the moon engaging with the sun, engaging with the heart, and using a tone, and its relationship with the astral, because the astral world is the world of forms, right? And the moon's associated with that because she goes through the cycles and affects the tides of the great sea, and so there's the ocean is often related to the astral. Sometimes it's referred to as the astral sea. And those two curves on the heart, those that end up being resonant chambers. Eliphas Levi talks about the moon, the symbol of the moon, being signs of the astral, represented in Baphomet, who's pointing up and down, right? This with the Salve et Coagula, and what Baphomet is pointing at is a crescent moon above and a crescent moon below. And he speaks about it being the upper and lower astral. The upper astral is more light and radiating, and the lower astral is more water and reflective, kind of falling back on what I was saying about the sun and the moon having that reflection and radiating aspect. So the practice that I wanted to share relates directly to being able to engage the astral, but through the dream body, through the dream self. And this is actually it's a Tibetan yogic practice of dream yoga. that involves visualization and hearing a tone in your heart when you go to sleep. And what you're supposed to do is, when you're going to sleep at night, if you normally lie on your back, you want to lie on your side, or if you're a side sleeper, you want to lie on your back. You still want to be able to relax your body, but be in a position you're not normally in, so that your physical body and your mental consciousness notes that something's a little different.
There's an engagement of some sort.
And so then you actually visualize a color and a sound in your heart. And the tone is ah. And in the Tibetan culture, they use a particular letter, but you can really you can use any letter or color. And so I just visualize a golden light in my heart chakra. And I hear that tone. I don't actually intone the tone. I just hear it in my meditation. And so you concentrate your thoughts on the light and the warmth of the light in your heart, and hear that tone. And you keep bringing your consciousness back to this meditation as you're slipping into the sleep realm. And you may find that as you're going to sleep, when you start to lose consciousness, you might snap out of it, or you might start to slip in, and the mind will question, is it working or is it not working? And you might come back, but you really want to just kind of when your mind goes in a different place, bring your mind back to the meditation, and bring your mind back to the meditation. And the more that you practice this, you'll start to reach a point where when you do slip into the dream state, that you'll notice that you're doing the meditation. And that will trigger you to realize, I'm dreaming. And then you can go into a lucid state. And that lucidity, being able to attain that lucidity, is something that can be helpful not only when you're dreaming and you're asleep at night, but that same lucidity and presence of mind can be applied when you're doing astral work, when you're awake, and when you're doing astral travel in ritual circumstances, because it's a shift of consciousness and of perception that is a non-rational state, a more reflective and intuitive state, which is why it's connected to the moon and the relationship of the resonance of the moon in the heart. The heart being the radiating part, being the blood and the vitality and the resonator, right? Like in the way that you were describing, the heart as being the resonance chamber, and the crescent shapes assisting that. It's really bringing the consciousness back to that meditation, so that the lucidity can be present in a very shifting, a place of shifting consciousness, the astral world and the dream world, both being associated with the moon and Luna. It's very easy to get caught up in the forms. And the more that we're able to practice this technique, the easier it is for us to not get caught up in the forms in the wake world. So there's a relationship, again, there's that reflection that we can gain from this practice that's embodied by the symbol of the moon, where it gives us the opportunity to be more objective in what it is that we're perceiving, rather than allowing the impulses to dictate to us what they are. The impulses lead us to the objective reality of what we're seeing, rather than telling us what the reality is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you bring the veil of illusions down by seeing it as it is instead of thinking it's yourself that's projecting.
Yeah, the key is the awareness, bringing awareness to what it is that we're observing, and really I've found that in that practice you can feel the permeability of all forms.
It's interesting because that experience I described, I have been doing that before sleep, putting my awareness without the sound and the colors. And this is something I've experienced because when I did a Vipassana retreat, silent for 10 days, at some point I just put my awareness on my heart and fell asleep, but I was still in my body. Like I started to snore and I'm like, oh no, like I woke myself up consciously because it was a dorm and I didn't want to wake people up. But I was in my body, like aware of everything in the room, but my body fell asleep. And so I've been continuing this practice before bed when I think about it. And that's when this vision came. So I'm excited to try it with added symbols, added layers to it, to have an even more kind of curated experience.
Yeah, and I mean, the symbols can do lots of things for you, right? Because they're forms. But I think the really important trigger is that it's a trigger for the memory, right, for the consciousness to go. When our consciousness slides into the astral or slides into the dream world, that world of forms, it's so tenuous but so real at the same time that it's the veil of illusion it can capture us. So having that meditation to be there to remind us, it's like, oh, I'm dreaming right now. And that's where the lucidity can really snap into place.
I know Dali had the similar technique. Have you heard of it? He would sit like on the couch with, I think it was those watches on a cord, and he would wrap it around his wrist, and then when he would just sit there, and when he's about to fall asleep, his hand would loosen, it would drop on the floor and wake him up. And a lot of his paintings and his visions come from this technique. What he would imagine before waking up, he would then paint. So that's why people have been interpreting his painting and to understand him better, because you can see all of his unconscious patterns through his paintings.
Have you read his book, 50 Secrets of Magic Craft?
No, from Dali.
Yeah, highly recommend that.
Amazing.
That's a book that he describes creating tools that alter consciousness, and some of them are pretty fantastic, like probably not very possible to create, but he's taking your consciousness through a place when you're reading how to make these things. And I think that, it's insightful in terms of engaging. 50 Secrets of Magic Craft. Or I think it's 50 Secrets of Magic Craftsmanship. Okay. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for taking time. I think both of you guys, here, I think this was even more magical than I think, just in the synchronicities of all our conversation, but also the depth of your answers. Like, I feel like one of your answers could be exfoliated in a whole podcast, but now we have so many different segments of gold. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and like, even comment if you can. That's how the channel grows, so it really means a lot when you guys do that. And also don't forget to go check out, if you're into occult, esoteric texts, Ouroboros is the publishing company of William, so I'll put the link below so you can go check out what he has to offer. And follow 22 Teachings, because they have all those mystical classes you ever dreamed about to learn the mystical arts and the hermetic arts. And go check out our website, shop the merch, if you guys feel inclined to support the channel. So until then, have a beautiful fall, and I'll see you next week for another episode with a visionary artist called Alfred. Much love and light to all you guys.